Hi everyone, welcome back to the Pearl Atelier. If you are new here, my name is Eileen. I've had a few new subscribers, so I'm very glad to be able to welcome you. And a few of you have been asking me about the Celadon green jade when you look through my videos because I referred to them. So I decided I'm going to do this video. So the Celadon green jade, as the name alludes to, the color of the Celadon green porcelain that is made famous during the Song dynasty, of which I have an example here of a picture with a double-headed spout, which is very unusual, and it features both the head of a phoenix as well as a dragon, and its body has got a peony etched on it. So this was made famous during the Song dynasty. The Ruware is considered in the porcelain world as one of the finest in the world, considering its time period is way before the Ming and the Qing dynasty, and it was during that period in time where culture flourished, because it was after the period of the 5 warring states. So the people had the luxury, and the emperor had the luxury of exploring porcelain ware, and they made it into one of the finest in the world. And it was also emulated by the Koreans in the Joseon dynasty, of which I have an example of this from my mom's collection. So this is a smaller piece. My mom had the larger vases. You can see that in the picture here. So that's exactly what the Celadon green jade refers to, and it falls under the category of nephrite jade with its cousin, the mutton fat jade. It was very famous in the past, from the millennia until the 1950s, and then people forgot about it. I've also forgotten about it. Only people in the older generation would remember, because it's almost extinct and very rare nowadays to come across it. It is no longer available from the old jade mine. So for example, when people are referring to the old jade mine, it refers to the exact mine that the Qianlong Emperor had a cartel on, and it has been mined to extinction, and that is exactly why it had to look to other sources for jade, because the Chinese had an insatiable appetite for jade. So this is the type of jade that you would have seen on your mother or your grandmother wear. I've also seen them in my mom's collection, which I've never featured on my channel before. I'm working towards making my channel much more successful, hopefully, so that I can feature some of her items. However, I've actually done a video on another piece of Celadon green jade pendant in the shape and form of a butterfly, and I came across that quite by accident from a seller in Ukraine who wasn't an expert in jade, who was selling other items, and I was happy to help her out because I didn't know that they were still at war. And I was very certain from the pictures that it was mutton fat jade, but when I received it, I was very disappointed, to tell you the truth. I assumed it was mutton fat, and it turned out to be something different. And then the more I looked at it, the more I feel that it's beautiful. It's something like, you know, if you meet a person for the first time and you think that person is really beautiful, but after meeting up with that person many times, you feel that, well, she's pretty but quite not that spectacular. Whereas as opposed to someone else, where when you first meet that person, she's not that beautiful to you, but then over time, and the more you meet up with that person, you feel that she's extremely mesmerizing. So it's exactly the same as with Celadon green jade as well. At first glance, it may not appeal to many people because it has a very sort of a subtle color, and people can be forgiven for mistaking it for mutton fat jade, as I did. So even when you look at this jade bangle, for example, it looks like mutton fat, but it's actually Celadon green jade, because it sort of leans more towards the greener color instead of the mutton fat color. And this jade bangle, I was fortunate enough to find it in a jade boutique in Singapore, and this was done in a very unusual and modern cutting. So this is a combination of the princess cut as well as the semicircle cut. So if you are interested in jade bangle cuttings and styles and shapes, I've actually done a video on it just the last week, so you can check that out as well. I'll link that in the playlist. So it is very unusual in that sense. I think Singapore is also a great source for you to find your pieces of jade besides Hong Kong, because they're coming up with very, very modern sort of subtle styles that are their own identity. And this one hasn't got engravings on it, but it has got some etchings on it. I would call it etchings. I wouldn't actually call it engravings or carvings, because it's not deeply embedded into the jade bangle. And it has some sakura flowers etched on it, together with a fish and my favorite, the butterfly. So if you have been following my channel, you know that I love the butterfly. That's exactly why I've chosen it as an emblem for my channel. And then the other one that I'm featuring as well in this channel is this jade pendant, also in the shade of a Celadon green, leaning more towards the apple green. So the Celadon jade has got shades of its colors as well. So this one, I got it from a seller from the United States. As I mentioned in some of my videos, it's not advisable for you to purchase online jade unless you are 100% sure of it. And I was willing to gamble that away, because I saw that the design of this jade pendant is absolutely stunning and unique. And especially when the seller was telling me that they got it from an estate sale. So then they told me that this came from an estate sale, I immediately grabbed it. And when I received it, I got a wonderful, wonderful surprise, because I thought it was an apple green jade, but it turned out to be a Celadon green jade. And I haven't got anything, I think, from the 1990s period, but this is really, really from the 1990s aesthetics, and I was willing to get it because I really want to have that to add to my collection. So this is sort of like an art deco revival. In the 1990s, they are sort of trying to move away from the archaic, ancient type of design and trying to move more towards a modern type of an aesthetics, and this is where the 1990s jade comes in. So it features a Chilean in the middle of the pendant, and the Chilean actually appears in a person's life during the birth or the demise of a ruler or a very influential person in your life. And I didn't want to touch on this for many months because it's very upsetting to me, and I wanted to keep some things personal. But I lost two of my mentors. Losing one mentor was bad enough, but I had to lose two of my most influential mentors in my life who stepped into the role of a father figure. Because for those of you who are unaware, I lost my dad when I was 16 years old. So they were the ones who actually shaped my career to help me. So they were stepping in as mentors, and I'm very grateful to them. So one of them was on the Forbes list of the richest billionaires in Malaysia consecutively for 20 years in the top 10 category. So he was a very large sort of larger than life tycoon, and yet he was very kind towards me. He was very noble in character, so I'm forever grateful to him. And then the other one, he died, he was quite young as well, who was very flamboyant. He was called the man with the Midas touch, because every time his stocks were exchanged on the Kuala Lumpur Stock Exchange, it was the highest traded stock. And he built one of the largest mixed development in my hometown, or it encompasses 4 hotels, out of which 3 of the hotels is of an international chain, and there was a shopping center as well. It really changed the lifestyle and the landscape of my hometown. So when I found out what actually the meaning of the Chilean is, it is actually sort of like the Chinese equivalent to the unicorn. I really wanted to point that out, because a lot of the times when you go through hardship in your life, you think that the people who are surrounding you, for example, the uncles and aunties whom you call your family friends, will step in and help you out. But a lot of the times I discovered that people actually rejoice in other people's hardships and other people's difficult periods of time. They will not lift a finger to help you. So for these 2 men who were my mentors, who were not related to me in any way whatsoever, I honestly thank God. I honestly think until today that my dad actually went out of his way from the other side to ensure that I meet these 2 mentors in my life. Otherwise, it would have been almost I have no idea how to put it in words. So every time now, because I didn't want to touch on this subject for many months, I wasn't sure whether I should, because it is a personal thing. So now every time when I look at this pendant, I will remember them forever. So when I first started doing this channel, I had no idea how I'm going to put out, what kind of contents I'm going to put out, because how much can I talk about it, and how am I going to go about it? But Jade keeps giving me and giving me, and so this video is actually dedicated to their memory. And every time, as I mentioned, when I look at this pendant, I will remember them. I have been very, very blessed to have their presence in my life. I hope that you have enjoyed looking at every single one of these pieces, which are beautiful in their own right. I think it's so wonderful that people are able to interpret jade in very different ways. So for example, these two are actually modern interpretations of the Celadon green jade, as opposed to the vintage jade pendant of the butterfly. I hope that you have fabulous week ahead, and thank you so much for accompanying me for this video.